Hello, everybody, all you sillies. This is my one take review of the what's it called, Lord of the Rings show, the Rings of Power, the new show Amazon Prime came out. Okay, so I want to preface it with the fact that for the longest time, um, I didn't enjoy the Lord of the Rings because I was focused on the idea that the characters that were like the warrior characters, they were the doing the interesting things, and they were fighting the war that mattered. And I was like, but I don't care what they're doing. Like their designs and their characters bore me. And then I assumed like the hobbits were like, I guess the hobbits that are silly like are irrelevant. But in my recent rewatching of the Lord of the Rings, I came to understand that that was actually the point. I had misunderstood the movies and therefore the books. What matters was indeed what the hobbits were doing. They're the ones that influence the story in all their silly little ways. And I finished watching the trilogy again today, and I actually cried at the ending. And I'm like, oh, I see the Lord of the Rings in a new light. I really appreciate it now. Anyways, back to the new show. So at first it begins with the elves. They're talking about the Rebildur of Isildur of Grombildur, and I got scared. I was like, no, is it gonna take like all the things that I don't like from the Lord of the Rings? Because that's what I don't like. I don't like the like big words and like made up wars. Like I like to see the plot happening. I don't care about like, oh yes, the fields of Gran Buldur and the great Tiondro. It's like, no, I don't want to hear that. So it starts off with the elves, and they're like, it's following one of the elves that showed up in the movies, but she's not played by the same actress. I'm glad. I told everyone that if Orlando Bloom showed up as a cameo, I would have been done. But as in, I would have stopped watching. But it doesn't look like there was a single cameo. So there's the elf lady, and she's looking for Sauron. That's how it begins. She's looking for Sauron, and you see the elves. They do little backflips, and they flip their swords around like all silly, like and I'm like, of all the characters to follow, listen, if you think the elves are interesting or cool, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. The elves are the least interesting characters because they're like OP, and they do triple flip, backflip with the sword. Like the stakes are low if you're following the elves, and it was clear when they like fight at the beginning of the episode. They just destroy this orc doing flippies on their sword. I'm like, I hope this isn't the pro tag. Then the story begins to do this very strange thing where it introduces us to like six different groups of six people, and that's it was way too many people to keep track of. I was already having a hard time like getting to know the first characters that were introduced, and they hand us so many characters, and they're all so gritty and wearing like a gray armor, and they just look like background characters. And I'm like, I'm not gonna remember any of these people. And it feels a lot like they're giving us just the boring parts of the Lord of the Rings. You know, the like, the soldiers fighting the Great War at the uh, pass. Um, and then suddenly out of nowhere, there's this big Fraggle Rock type musical. Well, the Fraggle Rock, we're here at Fraggle Rock, and it turns out there's ancient hobbits in the show, and they live in a little Fraggle Rock type city. And I thought, okay, it's not boring, and they're not too silly. They're not the dwarves from the Hobbit movies. They're little hobbits, and they live in their little secret society, and they were interesting. And I was like, oh. And then there's like a silly little child hobbit that's like so pesky and getting in trouble. Ha ha ha. And then we go back to a new, or not go back, we go to like a new group of characters that I couldn't care any less about. And it just takes us back to the elf kingdom where they're talking about their elf customs, and they lost me. The show looks promising. At the end, there's a big cliffhanger that did leave me like, oh, who's this character? What's happening there? Very interesting entrance. But then every other like character that was introduced in the story may need to be reintroduced in later episodes. It was kind of a bad choice to just slam all 25 characters. These are your 25 protagonists. Get to know them. The only ones that stuck with me are the elf lady that was in the Lord of the Rings movie. And I think Elrond is there when he's young. And then the hobbits, but they're not called hobbits, okay? They're called half-foots or something. They have a different name. They're ancient hobbits. That's all that matters. Anyways, I'm gonna keep watching. That was just the first episode. There's another episode. I think it's so far. It looks a little promising. It hasn't disappointed me yet. It might bring it around and make it all make sense with an actual story and developed character introductions instead of just tossing everything on the table, hoping you like one of the characters and you remember their name. I don't remember any of their names. Anyways, this is it for my one take review, made in one take. Only one take to make this review. Catch you sillies later when I don't know if I'll make one for the second episode. Okay, goodbye.